Hey everyone, my name is Dévi and welcome to Book Connoisseur. So today I have my January wrap-up and I'm really excited because I read not one, but 2 5-star books this month. I had an amazing reading month and I'm really excited to share it with you all. So just some stats, I read 9 books total, 3 on audiobook and 6 physical books. And I read 2 books from my library. So let's get into it. My first book of the year was a 5-star read, and that is Northwoods by Daniel Mason. This book is just incredible. This book is about a house in the northeast part of the United States, specifically Massachusetts, and it tells the story of this house and the people who have inhabited it. And it goes from 2 exiled Puritans during the colonial times to modern times. Each chapter tells the story of a different life of this house. So either people who lived in it, people who encountered it, what was going on there at the time. And towards the end, there's a little bit more of an overarching story, but generally the connecting theme through each chapter is the house itself. And something that I really loved about this book, and I'm really happy I got a physical copy, was there are photos and there are little like historical snippets. I don't know how to explain, like documents that are from, here we go. Like, I believe this is an almanac, which, like, from, I'm not sure what year this is from, but, you know, colonial times when people relied on almanacs to farm. And I'll just tell you, the beginning of the story, there's a man who wants to grow an apple orchard, and he finds the perfect piece of land and this little stone house, and it continues from there. And so apples and the earth and its beings are part of this story. And also there's a little bit of magical realism in this book. Are there spirits in this house? Who gets to stay after they're gone? You know, what happens to the people who used to live in this house, and do they show up again? I don't know. So I highly recommend it. And if you didn't notice, on the bottom here is a quote from Maggie O'Farrell, which says, "A monumental achievement of polyphony and humanity. I loved it." The next book I read was Let Us Descend by Jesmyn Ward. This book tells the story of an enslaved woman named Anise. Anise gets sold, and it mostly takes place during the walk from the Carolinas to New Orleans, where she's to be sold. What's crazy is enslaved people actually had to physically walk from one state to another to be sold. They were forced, they were chained together, and it's really raw and real and sad. So sad. And what comes through very strongly in this book is grief. This is the first book Jesmyn Ward wrote after the death of her husband, and the deep grief of such an incredible loss is really felt throughout this book. But if you're not in the right mindset to read that, which I don't think I totally was at the time, I wouldn't recommend it. The writing is beautiful. She is incredible with words. And the story itself really is hard to read. It's not easy. So just make sure you're in the right mindset. There's assault, incredibly gruesome abuse. And I listened to a podcast interview with Jesmyn Ward about this book. It was the Stacks podcast with Tracy, and I will link the episode. She was thinking about Dante's Inferno while writing this book, and the idea of walking into the depths of hell, and that is sort of the majority of this book, if that gives you a good idea of what it is about. I haven't read Jesmyn Ward's other books. I do own a few. I think I own Salvage the Bones and Sing Unburied Sing, but I have to check. I'll definitely give her books another try. This one just wasn't for me. I do think it was really beautiful tale of grief and a journey that I would not know existed if it wasn't for this book. So because of that, I gave this a 3 stars. The next book I read was called Diet Starts Monday by Laura Adlington. And if you're not familiar with Laura Adlington, she was on the Great British Baking Show a few years ago, I think in 2020. And I really love her. I'm a big fan of her. She's using her platform to promote body positivity, and I say that after reading this book, something I got from her was just the idea of body neutrality, like not feeling anything towards your body, like not feeling like, oh, you have to be some way or another, just not caring. And I think that that's the main lesson I'll take from this book, which I think is a really helpful thing. And I don't think this wasn't necessarily written for me. I think I'm in my health era, if that makes any sense. But I'm really interested in nutrition and nurturing my body, especially after having a baby, and nutrition has become an interest of mine since I have to feed my baby. But in the past, I've struggled with my body image, and I think that I would have really benefited from this book at a different time in my life, and I really highly recommend it if you're struggling to accept yourself and just be happy with what you see in the mirror and living your life regardless of what you look like. Yeah, I really appreciate her message. I think it was well written and extremely well researched. I was impressed, and she wrote this whole book herself without a ghostwriter, and I think that's incredible. The next book I read was This Tender Land by William Kent Krueger, and I won't go into too much detail about this book because I did a whole vlog of me reading it. My husband really loved it, so I decided to give it a try, and I also really liked it. It was pretty good. Wasn't the best book I read this month, but it was fun. It was a good tale. I will link my previous video in the description below, so if you are interested in watching that at all. Okay, the next book I read was a physical book, and that is Twice Lost by Phyllis Paul. Now, this is a McNally edition. It's really a beautiful book. I'm obsessed with the McNally editions. So this book was written in 1960, and it was published and then quickly forgotten about, and McNally Editions has brought it back. And this story...
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Oh, sorry. Oops. So Phyllis Paul, there's not much known about her as a person and her life. She believed in letting her work speak for itself and maintaining a level of anonymity with her work. And what's interesting, I'm pointing out, there's a foreword in this book by Jeremy M. Davies, and something he points out is that Phyllis Paul was killed. She was hit by a motorcycle while crossing the street, and they identified her by the initials on her handkerchief. And as the Jeremy M. Davies points out, that could be a plot for one of her stories. This book tells the tale of the mystery of a small English village where a girl goes missing. In this town, there's a big mansion that has been abandoned at certain points and gets bought by this wealthy author, and his son is a huge part of this story. There's multiple point of views, and we hear from Christine, who is a woman who lives in this village, who was one of the last people to see this girl alive. And also another major point of view is the son of this author, who is very manipulative and not a good person, and he is the one who ends up mostly living in this mansion years later. This is not a fast-paced thriller type book. It's more of a gothic, you know, slow pace. It's very carefully written. Each word is chosen very precisely, and that's something I really appreciated about it. It did take me a little bit to get through it. I started this book last month and then finished it this month. If gothic books interest you, I recommend it. The next book I read was another 5-star. My second 5-star. And that is Monstrilio by Gerardo, Sámano, Córdova. And sorry, this is a library book, so it's a little shiny. This is another book about grief. It's about this couple whose son dies at a young age, and the mom carves out a piece of his lung as a way of grieving, and she keeps it. She hears a folk tale that if you feed a piece of a loved one after they've passed, that it will grow. It ends up growing, and it becomes this being, a sentient being who they call Monstrilio. It's about the parents grappling with this, you know, monster being who sort of resembles their son Santiago, but isn't quite Santiago, and the idea of replacing him with this, and the fact that this is a monster. There's an element of magical realism in this, a little bit of horror. It can be a little gruesome at times, but I thought it was really beautifully written, and this is the author's debut novel, and I cannot wait to read more of his work. The next book I read was Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah, and I read this for my book club, and I did not like it. I did not like it at all. This book tells a story of this gladiator type fighting ring where people who are in the prison system in the US, they can sign up to fight each other to the death. And it's like this whole thing where it's almost like reality television, or like there's like a big following and these are televised matches, and it's sort of like almost like a football match. A lot of characters that they follow in this book, and I just could not keep track of everyone. And there are also footnotes with actual facts and information about the US justice system and people who have died at the hands of the US justice system, real people who have died. And I appreciated those tidbits of information, but overall, this just didn't work for me. It wasn't my favorite book I've ever read, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. The next book I read was Casting Off by Elizabeth Jane Howard. This is the 4th book in the Cazalet Chronicles, and as I've mentioned in previous videos, this book follows a family mostly from London, but also they have a country estate home where they spend most of the war, World War II, and the series follows them from right after World War I, and now this book, Casting Off, takes place after World War II, and how the family sort of gets back to regular life, following all of the changes that happened during the war. I did not like this one as much as I liked Confusion, the 3rd book in the series, but this was still good. I still really like the characters, and I am planning on finishing the series. There's one more left called All Change, and yeah, I'm hoping to read that in the next coming months. I might wait a little just because I like it so much that I don't want to finish yet. But yeah, if you're looking for a series, a historical fiction series, I recommend this one. And the final book I read, which I finished a few days ago, I'm dipping my toe into fantasy with this book, and that is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This was one of the 4 books that Brandon Sanderson published with a Kickstarter, and I really liked this book. It's the perfect little standalone novel to just get you into the mood to read fantasy. If you're interested in reading fantasy but haven't yet, this is a great book to start with. This book follows Tress, and she lives in this world where the seas are these spores. So if water touches the spore, things happen, like vines will start growing, or these sharp shards of something will start growing. It can be very dangerous, and it can kill people. So she has, lives in their safety net of her little island with their parents, and she falls in love with the Duke's son. But when the Duke sends his son away because he's falling in love with Tress, she has to go on a journey to find him overseas, in this world that she's barely seen. So this book takes place mostly on a ship. If you like pirates, or you're a fan of The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by S.A. Chakraborty, this is a great book for you. It's very whimsical, it's funny, it's humorous, and Brandon Sanderson said he was inspired by The Princess Bride to write this book, which is what got me to pick it up, because I love The Princess Bride, the movie. I actually have to read the book. I haven't read the book yet. It got me excited to read more of Brandon Sanderson's work, and that's just what I'm doing right now. I just picked up Mistborn, and so we'll see. Here's my January pile. I don't usually read this much in a month. This was kind of unusual for me, but I'm really proud of myself, and I honestly, having this YouTube channel has really encouraged me to read and share my thoughts, and I'm really excited about it. I hope I can keep this up and you find this information interesting. I just wanted to touch on a few things that are happening in the next few weeks. I am moving. We currently are living with my parents as our house was under construction, and construction's finally over and we are moving imminently. But what I'm really excited about are the bookshelves that are in one of the rooms at our new house, and all of my books are in storage, so I can't wait to unpack them, and I'm hoping to take you along with me while I do that if you're interested. I might show a little bit of our house. I put a lot of love into making it, and I'm excited to share it. Yeah, so I hope you like this video. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Leave me a comment. Have you read any of these books? Are you a fantasy reader? Let me know what to read next. If I liked Tress of the Emerald Sea. I'm really into the whimsical fantasy, I think. So let me know, and I'll be back again soon with another Booktube video. Bye!